The crystalline vial shattered against the marble floor of the throne room, its contents spreading in an opalescent pool that caught the light of 1,000 ceremonial flames. Queen Lorelei of the Vorthak Empire watched the liquid seep between the stones, her 4 eyes tracking every droplet with predatory focus. The substance was Nexion 7, a poison so lethal that a single drop could kill 50 warriors of her species within heartbeats. The human child responsible for the accident stood frozen, his small fingers still trembling from the impact. 8 years old, maybe 9, with the pale skin and dark hair common to his Deathworlder species. His name was Marcus, son of the human ambassador who had arrived 3 cycles ago to negotiate the first peace treaty between their kinds. The boy had been reaching for a ceremonial fruit when his elbow struck the vial. "Step back," commanded General Thaxer, the Queen's primary advisor, his voice cutting through the sudden silence. Every being in the throne room, Vorthak nobles, alien diplomats, ceremonial guards, retreated from the spreading poison, all except the human child, who seemed transfixed by the glittering liquid advancing toward his feet. Queen Lorelei raised one clawed hand, halting the evacuation. Her species had ruled 17 star systems through careful observation and calculated risk. She had watched humans for 3 years now, studying their impossible biology, their defiance of every natural law. They came from a world where everything tried to kill them, where they had evolved alongside toxins that would destroy entire fleets of other species. But Nexion 7 was different. It was artificial, created specifically to target cellular mitochondria across all known life forms. The child's shoe touched the edge of the poison. Marcus looked up at her, his brown eyes wide but unafraid. Human children, she had learned, possessed an alarming lack of survival instincts compared to other species. Where a young Vorthak would flee, humans often stood their ground. Where others showed terror, humans showed curiosity. "Your Majesty," Ambassador Chen stepped forward, his face pale with horror. "Marcus, come here immediately." "No," the Queen said softly. Her voice carried absolute authority, stopping the ambassador mid-stride. "Let him be." The poison was now covering the child's shoes, seeping through the synthetic material. By all rights, he should already be convulsing, his nervous system shutting down as the toxin invaded his bloodstream. Instead, Marcus crouched down, studying the substance with scientific fascination. "It's pretty," he said, his young voice echoing in the vast chamber, "like Mama's nail polish, but sparkly." General Thaxer's breathing apparatus wheezed with stress. "Your Majesty, we should evacuate the STVN." Silence. Queen Lorelei stepped down from her throne, her Sikh's legs moving with fluid grace. Each step brought her closer to the spreading poison, closer to the human child who should have been dead 3 times over. The toxin was climbing his legs now, visible through the thin fabric of his clothing as dark veins spreading upward. The child giggled. The sound sent ripples of shock through the assembly. Marcus dipped his finger into the poison and held it up to the light, watching it drip. "It tickles," he announced cheerfully. Queen Lorelei stopped just outside the contamination zone, her tactical mind racing through possibilities. Nexion 7 had been developed by the hegemony as their ultimate weapon, designed to end the war by making biological warfare impossible to defend against. They had tested it on captured specimens of 43 different species. All had died within seconds. "Marcus," she said, her voice gentle but commanding. "How do you feel?" The boy considered the question seriously, his head tilting to one side. "Warm, like when I drink hot chocolate. And my tummy feels funny, but not bad funny. Good funny." The poison had reached his chest now, dark tendrils visible under his pale skin like some alien tattoo. His metabolism was processing it, breaking it down, somehow converting one of the galaxy's deadliest toxins into something harmless. No, not harmless, beneficial. The child's eyes were brighter now, his movements more energetic. Ambassador Chen moved toward his son, but Queen Lorelei blocked his path with one massive arm. "Do not interfere. He's my child." "He is a Deathworlder," she replied, never taking her eyes off Marcus, and this may change everything. The boy had found a piece of broken crystal and was using it to draw patterns in the remaining poison, creating swirling designs that caught and reflected the ceremonial flames. The toxin responded to his touch, changing color from opalescent silver to warm gold, as if his very presence was transforming its molecular structure. General Thaxter activated his emergency communicator. Medical team to the throne room. Full contamination protocol. Cancel that order, Queen Lorelei said without turning. And seal the chamber. No one enters or leaves until I understand what we're witnessing. The massive doors groaned shut, their magnetic locks engaging with finality. The queen moved closer to the child, close enough now that the poison's fumes should have killed her instantly. Instead, she breathed deeply, detecting something impossible. The toxin was becoming inert in the air around the boy, neutralized by some biochemical process her species couldn't comprehend. Marcus looked up at her and smiled, his face now completely covered in golden swirls of transformed poison. Want to help me make pictures? The fate of the galaxy had just shifted, and an 8-year-old human child was asking her to play in the puddle that should have killed him. Queen Lorelei knelt beside the boy, who had accidentally proven that humanity's greatest weakness. The war with the hegemony would never be the same. Nothing would ever be the same. Queen Lorelei studied the child's transformed features as the golden substance continued its impossible metamorphosis. The toxin wasn't just being neutralized, it was being weaponized in reverse, turned into something that might actually benefit the boy's cellular structure. Her bioscanners built into her ceremonial crown registered readings that defied every law of biochemistry her species understood. Marcus, she said carefully, has anything like this happened to you before? The boy paused in his artistic endeavors, considering the question with the seriousness that human children sometimes displayed when asked about their inner worlds. Sort of. When I got sick on the ship coming here, Mama gave me medicine that made the other kids throw up. But it made me feel better. Ambassador Chen pressed against the barrier of her arm, desperation creasing his features. Your Majesty, with respect, my son needs medical attention. Whatever's happening to him could be exactly what we need to understand. She turned to face the ambassador, her 4 eyes focusing on him with predatory intensity. Tell me about your world's medical protocols. What do human children consume that other species find toxic? The man's face showed confusion mixed with parental panic. I don't understand the relevance. Answer the question. General Thaxter moved closer, his weapons systems automatically scanning the child for threat levels. The readings were confusing, elevated energy signatures, but nothing aggressive. If anything, the boy seemed to be generating some kind of protective field around himself, a bubble of transformed toxin that was actively purifying the air. We eat things, Ambassador Chen said reluctantly. Foods that other species consider poisonous. Chocolate is lethal to hundreds of species. Alcohol destroys most alien nervous systems. Caffeine can stop a Zaloran's heart. But children don't consume those substances in quantities that would... He stopped mid-sentence, his eyes widening as understanding dawned. Marcus had been drinking hot chocolate before the ceremony. 2 large cups, according to the security footage they had reviewed during preparation. The caffeine and theobromine in his system had primed his metabolism for toxin processing. Show me your dietary records, Queen Lorelei commanded. Everything your species consumes that we classify as hazardous. While General Thaxter accessed the diplomatic databases, the Queen watched Marcus continue his strange art project. The boy was singing now, a simple human melody about stars and friendship. The poison responded to the sound vibrations, forming crystalline patterns that grew more complex with each note. The substance was learning, adapting, becoming something entirely new. Your Majesty. General Thaxter's voice carried a note of awe. Human dietary records show consumption of over 300 substances we classify as Class Pi 5 toxins or higher. They call them foods and give them to their children regularly. The implication struck her like a physical blow. Humans hadn't just evolved resistance to their homeworld's dangers. They had turned those dangers into nutritional advantages. Their bodies were living laboratories, constantly processing and neutralizing threats that would destroy other species. What they called eating dinner was essentially controlled poisoning that made them stronger. And the war implications? She asked, though she already knew the answer. If humans can process Nexion, 7 like this, Thaxor said quietly, the hegemony's entire biological warfare strategy becomes useless against them. More than useless, it might actually strengthen them. Marcus had finished his pattern and was now dipping his hands directly into the remaining poison, laughing as it transformed into shimmering streams of gold between his fingers. Each drop that touched his skin was instantly converted, processed through biochemical pathways that functioned like molecular factories. Queen Lyrale activated her personal communicator, connecting directly to her war council across 17 star systems. Emergency session, Priority Alpha. The human child has survived direct contact with Nexion 7 and converted it into something beneficial. We need new assessments of their combat potential immediately. The responses came rapidly: shock, disbelief, demands for verification. She ignored them all, focusing instead on the scene before her. The boy was offering her his hand, palm covered in transformed toxin that sparkled like liquid starlight. "It's warm," he said encouragingly, like a hug. Against every protocol and survival instinct, she reached out and touched the substance. The golden liquid transferred to her carapace and immediately began to flow across her surface, seeking entry through pore and joint. She braced for death, but instead felt a surge of energy unlike anything her species had ever experienced. Her wounds from old battles began to heal. Her vision sharpened, her strength doubled. Ambassador Chen staggered backward. "What's happening to her?" Marcus clapped his hands with delight. "I fixed her up. Mama says sharing makes everything better." Queen Lyrale looked at her transformed carapace, watching as scars faded and her natural armor became stronger, more resilient. The child hadn't just survived the deadliest toxin in the galaxy. He had accidentally created the most powerful healing agent ever discovered. And he did it by simply being human. "General Thaxor," she said, her voice carrying new harmonics of power. "Contact the hegemony. Tell them we need to discuss new terms." "What terms, Your Majesty?" She smiled, an expression that would have terrified enemies across the galaxy. "Unconditional surrender. We have just gained the ultimate biological weapon." She looked down at Marcus, who was making golden handprints on the marble floor. "And his name is humanity." The throne room fell silent, except for the child's happy humming. The war had just ended, and none of the adults understood it yet except for her. But Marcus, innocently creating art with transformed poison, had demonstrated something that would reshape the balance of power across the galaxy. Humans weren't just survivors. They were processors, converters, living alchemy engines that turned death into life. General Thaxor's tactical assessment confirmed her instincts. If one human child could do this accidentally, what could human adults do deliberately? What could human soldiers do in combat? The questions multiplied, each more staggering than the last. She had witnessed the evolution of warfare itself, and it had happened because a boy reached for fruit. The War Council's responses were growing more frantic, demanding explanations she wasn't ready to give. Instead, she knelt beside Marcus and helped him create patterns in the golden substance that had once been the galaxy's most feared weapon. Tomorrow would bring new realities, new alliances, new equations of power. Tonight belonged to a child who had stumbled into greatness by simply being himself. The transformation was spreading beyond the initial contact zone now. The poison that had seeped into the marble was converting the stone itself, creating veins of gold that spread in complex geometric patterns across the floor. Marcus followed these new formations with fascination, his small hands tracing the designs as they emerged organically from the interaction between human biochemistry and alien materials. Queen Lyrale's enhanced perception allowed her to see the molecular changes occurring in real time. The child's touch was restructuring matter at the atomic level, creating new compounds that her science couldn't classify. What should have been a diplomatic disaster was becoming a breakthrough that would revolutionize galactic civilization. Your Majesty, General Thaxter approached cautiously. Incoming priority communication from High Command. They're demanding immediate evacuation and quarantine protocols. Tell them to monitor and record everything, but maintain distance. This child is rewriting the fundamental laws of biochemistry. She paused, watching as Marcus created a spiral pattern that seemed to pulse with its own internal light. And I think he's just getting started. The boy looked up from his work, his face smeared with golden residue that made him appear to glow from within. The floor is singing, he announced matter-of-factly. Can you hear it? Queen Lyrelay tilted her head, activating her enhanced audio receptors. There it was, a harmonic frequency emanating from the transformed material, a sound like crystalline bells mixed with distant thunder. The poison-turned healing agent was somehow generating music as it spread through the stone. Ambassador Chen pressed against the sealed doors, his panic escalating as he watched his son's skin take on an increasingly luminous quality. Marcus, are you feeling sick? Dizzy? Any pain at all? I feel great, Daddy, Marcus called back, like when we went swimming in the warm springs on Kepler Station, but better. The reference sent a chill through Queen Lyrelay's consciousness. Kepler Station's thermal springs were radioactive enough to kill most species within minutes. Humans used them for recreational swimming. She was beginning to understand that her species had been fundamentally wrong about what constituted dangerous environments for humans. General, access human recreational databases. Cross-reference their leisure activities with our hazard classifications. But the data stream that followed was overwhelming. Humans jumped from aircraft for entertainment. They consumed ethanol in social gatherings, a substance that would cause liver failure in 12 known species. They exposed themselves to stellar radiation to change their skin pigmentation. They ate capsaicin for pleasure, a chemical compound used in military-grade deterrent weapons. They're not just resistant to toxins, she murmured, watching Marcus continue his golden artwork. They actively seek out danger and convert it into positive experiences. Their entire species is built around biological alchemy. Marcus had moved to the throne steps, spreading his transformed toxin upward in sweeping arcs that followed the architectural lines of the chamber. Each surface he touched became something new, stronger, more beautiful, somehow more alive than before. The boy was unconsciously terraforming her throne room into something that enhanced rather than merely decorated. What happens when he finishes? General Thaxter asked quietly. Queen Lyrelay considered the question while monitoring the child's vital signs through her crown sensors. His heart rate was elevated but steady. Brain activity showed patterns unlike any species in their databases. Not just active, but hyperactive, processing information at rates that suggested cognitive enhancement. The toxin hadn't just failed to kill him, it was making him smarter. I think, she said slowly, we're about to find out what human potential really looks like when it's chemically optimized. Marcus stood at the base of her throne, looking up at the massive seat carved from a single piece of asteroid crystal. The golden substance in his hands pulsed brighter, responding to his proximity to the seat of power. He placed both palms against the crystal, and the transformation began immediately. The throne erupted in light. Golden veins spread through the crystal like lightning, converting its molecular structure into something that sang with harmonic frequencies. The seat of the Vorthek Empire became a living instrument of power, amplifying and focusing energy in ways their technology couldn't measure. Queen Lyrelay felt the change wash over her as she approached her transformed seat. The throne wasn't just enhanced, it was evolved, turned into something that could interface directly with consciousness. When she sat down, information flowed through her mind with impossible clarity. She could perceive the entire empire simultaneously, sense the emotional states of her subjects across 17 star systems, understand the flow of resources and power in ways that transcended normal administration. Marcus, she said, her voice now carrying harmonics that reached into subsonic ranges. What did you just do? The child smiled with innocent pride. I made your chair better. Now it can help you take care of everybody like Mama helps take care of me when I'm sick." The implications were staggering. The boy had accidentally converted her seat of power into something resembling the collective consciousness networks theoretical mathematicians had proposed but never achieved. She wasn't just ruling the empire anymore. She was directly connected to it, able to govern with perfect information and empathetic understanding. "General Thaxter," she commanded, her enhanced perceptions allowing her to monitor his vital signs and emotional state in real time. "Contact the human homeworld. I want to speak directly with their leadership within the hour. What message should I send?" She looked down at Marcus, who was now sitting cross-legged on the geometric patterns he had created, humming contentedly as the transformed toxin continued to spread through the chamber's infrastructure. The boy had accidentally demonstrated capabilities that surpassed her species' greatest technological achievements. "Tell them," she said, her consciousness now expanded across star systems, "that we want to discuss partnership opportunities, and tell them to bring more children." The future was rewriting itself in golden spirals around an 8-year-old who thought he was just playing with pretty colors. The galaxy would never be the same, and humanity had just become the most valuable species in known space. All because a curious child had reached for fruit and knocked over a vial of death. The golden transformation had reached the chamber's ceremonial weapons display, converting ancient artifacts into something that hummed with contained energy. Queen Lyrelay, through her enhanced throne connection, could sense the weapon's new properties. They weren't just more powerful, they were selective, capable of distinguishing between threat and protection with impossible precision. Marcus had accidentally created a perfect defense system simply by touching things. "Your Majesty." General Thaxter's voice carried excitement and terror in equal measure. "The transformation is spreading beyond this chamber. It's moving through the ventilation systems, the electrical conduits, the water supply. The entire palace is being converted." Through her expanded consciousness, she monitored the change's progress. Every surface the golden substance touched became improved. Walls grew stronger while becoming more permeable to beneficial frequencies. Lighting systems began generating spectrums that enhanced healing and cognitive function, and defensive shields evolved into barriers that could distinguish between hostile and peaceful intent. Marcus had stood up and was walking toward the sealed doors where his father waited. The ambassador pressed against the transparent barrier, tears streaming down his face as he watched his son approach. The boy's skin now glowed with soft golden light, his eyes reflecting depths that seemed older than his years, though his manner remained purely childlike. "Daddy, don't cry," Marcus said, placing his palm against the barrier. "Everything's better now. Look." Where his hand touched the door, the barrier transformed. Instead of the opaque metal that had sealed them in, crystal and transparency spread outward, allowing perfect visual and audio communication while maintaining atmospheric separation. Ambassador Chen could see his son clearly now, could hear his voice without distortion. "Child," Queen Lyrelay called softly, her voice carrying new harmonics of compassion that her species had never possessed. "Come here, please." Marcus skipped back to the throne, leaving golden footprints that converted the marble into something that felt alive beneath her limbs. When he reached her, she gently lifted him onto her lap, an unprecedented breach of protocol that felt absolutely right in the moment. "Marcus, I need to understand something important. When you touch things, you make them better. Do you know how you do that?" "Part of physics." The boy considered her question seriously, his luminous eyes reflecting the transformed chamber around them. "It's like when Mama makes soup. She puts in lots of different things that taste weird by themselves, but when she mixes them together, they become something yummy. I just help things mix better." The simplicity of his explanation belied its profound implications. Humans weren't just processing toxins, they were serving as biological catalysts, enabling chemical and molecular combinations that other species couldn't achieve. They were living nexus points where impossible reactions became possible. "And the singing?" she asked, referring to the harmonic frequencies emanating from everything he had touched. "That's just things being happy," he said matter-of-factly. "When stuff works the way it's supposed to, it makes music. Like when Daddy fixes the engine on our ship and it stops making that scary noise." Queen Lyrelay felt her perception of reality shifting fundamentally. Marcus wasn't describing some mystical process. He was describing optimization at a level her species couldn't comprehend. He was telling her that matter had preferred states, harmonic configurations that felt natural and right, and humans somehow enabled those configurations to emerge. Through her throne connection, she sensed incoming communications from across her empire. Reports were flooding in from observation posts monitoring human colonies. Phenomena that had been dismissed as technological anomalies were suddenly being reinterpreted. Humans weren't just lucky survivors, they were cosmic facilitators, enabling positive change wherever they went. "General Thaxter," she said, "cancel all defensive preparations against human expansion. Immediately. Your Majesty, the strategic implications are that we've been approaching this entirely wrong." She looked down at Marcus, who had fallen asleep in her arms, his small body still glowing softly as his metabolism continued processing and distributing beneficial compounds. Humans aren't a threat to be contained. They're a gift to be protected. The boy stirred sleepily, opening his eyes to look up at her. "Can I come back and play tomorrow? I want to show you how to make the walls dance." Queen Lyrelay felt something she had never experienced in her centuries of life. Not just affection for an alien child, but genuine hope for the future of all species. The war with the hegemony would end not through conquest, but through transformation. Humans would teach the galaxy how to convert poison into medicine, conflict into cooperation, fear into growth. "Yes, Marcus," she said, her voice carrying harmonics of promise that resonated through the transformed chamber. "You can come back every day." As security teams prepared for the complex process of safely extracting a chemically enhanced human child from a transformed throne room, Queen Lyrelay began composing the message that would reshape galactic civilization. The age of survival was ending. The age of thriving had begun. And it started with an 8-year-old boy who thought touching poison was just another kind of play. The news of Marcus's transformation spread through the palace communication networks within hours, though Queen Lyrelay had ordered strict information control to prevent panic. Through her enhanced throne connection, she monitored the reactions of her advisors, military commanders, and diplomatic corps in real time. Fear predominated, but underneath, she detected something more significant. Curiosity. Marcus's father had been permitted into a secondary chamber connected to the transformed throne room, close enough to maintain visual contact while the boy slept peacefully in the queen's arms. The golden glow emanating from the child's skin had stabilized, pulsing gently in rhythm with his heartbeat, and scanners showed his vital signs were not just normal but optimized beyond any baseline they had on record for human physiology. "Your Majesty," Dr. Velix, the palace's chief xenobiologist, approached cautiously. "Preliminary analysis of the transformed material shows molecular structures we've never seen before. The toxin hasn't just been neutralized." She gestured toward the sleeping child. "Test me. Draw blood, scan tissue, analyze whatever you need to understand what happened here. Ma'am, the risk is worth understanding." Through her throne's enhanced perception, she could sense Dr. Velix's professional excitement, warring with laboratory caution. "This child has given us more than survival. He's shown us evolution." While the doctor prepared her instruments, Queen Lyrelay studied the patterns Marcus had created throughout the chamber. They weren't random. Each design followed mathematical principles that her species' greatest architects would have needed decades to calculate. The boy had intuited perfect structural harmonics, creating improvements that enhanced both function and beauty. The analysis results appeared on Dr. Velix's displays within minutes. "Your Majesty, your cellular regeneration has increased by 400%. Neural pathway efficiency has improved by 600%. Your natural armor is now resistant to energy weapons that would have previously caused significant damage." "And this is from brief contact with the transformed toxin?" "Yes, ma'am. If these improvements are permanent, you've essentially been given an additional several centuries of life, along with enhanced cognitive and physical capabilities." Queen Lyrelay felt the implications settling into her consciousness like puzzle pieces finding their proper places. Marcus hadn't just survived an assassination attempt, He had accidentally converted it into a gift that enhanced her ability to rule effectively and compassionately. The boy had turned war into medicine. Doctor. Bellex, what would happen if we could replicate this process? If we could teach other species to metabolize toxins the way humans do? The scientist's breathing apparatus wheezed with excitement. Theoretically, ma'am, we could eliminate biological warfare entirely. Poisons would become medicines. Environmental hazards would become resources. Entire worlds currently uninhabitable might become paradises. Marcus stirred in her arms, opening his glowing eyes to look up at her with sleepy curiosity. Did I sleep long? Mama says growing boys need lots of rest, especially when they're working hard. You worked very hard indeed, she told him gently. You changed everything. The boy smiled proudly, then noticed Dr. Valex's scanning equipment. Ooh, are those the machines that look inside people? Can I see? Before anyone could object, Marcus had slipped from the Queen's lap and approached the scanner displays showing her enhanced biology. He studied the data with the same intense focus he had given to the poison patterns, his young mind processing information that would challenge adult scientists. You're all fixed up now, he announced with satisfaction. Look, your light is brighter, and your music sounds happier. Dr. Gessen. Velix exchanged glances with Queen Lyralee. Music, Your Majesty? The harmonic frequencies, she explained. He perceives the biological optimization as sound. It appears humans don't just process toxins, they perceive the health and harmony of biological systems directly. Marcus nodded enthusiastically. Everything sings when it's working right. Daddy says I have good ears, but really I think other people just don't listen carefully enough. The implications were staggering. Humans could function as biological diagnosticians, able to perceive health, disease, and optimization at levels that transcended any technology. They were living medical scanners whose very presence could facilitate healing. Marcus, Queen Lyralee said carefully, when you listen to people, can you tell when they're sick or hurt? Sometimes, he said thoughtfully, like Admiral Chen. That's Daddy's friend. His music sounds scratchy in his breathing parts. And the nice lady with 4 arms who brings us food, her feet songs sound tired. Dr. Velix began rapid calculations on her tablet. Your Majesty, if the child can diagnostically assess health across species combined with their apparent ability to convert toxins into beneficial compounds, we're looking at the end of disease as we understand it, Queen Lyralee finished. Through her enhanced perception, she could sense Marcus's unconscious monitoring of everyone in the surrounding chambers, his young mind automatically cataloging health states and potential improvements. This child doesn't just survive death, he radiates life. Marcus had wandered over to examine the transformed walls, running his hands along the golden veins with obvious pleasure. Where he touched, the patterns grew brighter and more complex, as if responding to his approval. The boy was unconsciously fine-tuning the enhancements, optimizing them through pure intuitive understanding. Your Majesty, General Thaxter's voice carried excitement that transcended his usual military composure. Message from Human Homeworld Command. They're requesting permission to send a delegation of their medical researchers. They say they've been studying similar phenomena in their population but never understood the full implications. Queen Lyralee smiled, feeling the future reshaping itself around the sleeping potential of humanity. Tell them yes. Tell them to bring their children. Tell them we have much to learn from each other. As Marcus continued his unconscious optimization of her throne room, converting it from a seat of power into a living symphony of biological harmony, Queen Lyralee began to understand that this was only the beginning. Humanity wasn't just another species seeking survival in a hostile galaxy. They were the galaxy's immune system, evolved to convert threats into opportunities, poison into medicine, conflict into cooperation. The war was over before it had truly begun, ended not by weapons but by wonder. An 8-year-old boy had reached for fruit and accidentally demonstrated that the future belonged not to the strongest or the smartest, but to those who could transform death into life with nothing more than touch, intuition, and the innocent belief that everything could be made better. The golden transformation was no longer contained to the throne room. Through the palace's interconnected systems, Marcus's unconscious optimizations spread like beneficial lightning, converting ancient stone into living architecture, turning defensive weapons into protective gardens, transforming a fortress into something resembling a healing temple. Queen Lyrelay watched through her enhanced perception as her empire's capital city began to change. The effects rippled outward through underground networks, carried by water systems and atmospheric currents that Marcus had somehow programmed to distribute his biochemical improvements. Buildings grew stronger while becoming more beautiful. Pollution converted into nutrients. The sick began to heal simply by breathing air that had passed through the transformed palace. "Mama's going to be so excited," Marcus said, pressing his face against the crystalline barrier to wave at his father. "She studies how to help sick planets feel better. She's gonna love what we did here." Ambassador Chen had stopped crying and was now staring in wonder at his transformed son. Through the transparent barrier, they could see the golden patterns flowing beneath Marcus's skin like living circuitry, and his eyes had developed depth that reflected wisdom beyond his years while maintaining pure childlike joy. "Marcus," his father called gently, "how do you feel? Really feel?" The boy considered the question with the seriousness he gave to all adult inquiries. "Like I can help everything be what it wants to be. Like I can hear what makes things sad and help them sing better songs." He paused, tilting his head as if listening to something only he could perceive. "And I can feel Mama coming. She's on the fast ship with the doctors who help people." Dr. Velix checked her long-range sensors and confirmed Marcus's impossible observation. Human medical transport requesting permission to dock. Estimated arrival in 4 hours. Through her throne connection, Queen Lyrelay sensed the approaching ship's occupants. Human scientists whose biological signatures showed the same enhancement potential as Marcus, though dormant. They had been exposed to countless toxins in their research, but had somehow converted those exposures into advantages. The entire human species was walking around with capabilities they had never fully understood. "General Thaxor, prepare a reception for our human guests. Full honors, but more importantly, full biosafety integration. If Marcus's abilities are representative of human potential, we need to understand how to safely facilitate interaction between our species." Marcus had moved to the center of his golden mandala pattern and was sitting quietly, his hands placed palm down on the synchronized designs. His breathing had taken on a rhythmic quality that matched the harmonic frequencies emanating from the transformed chamber, and Queen Lyrelay realized he was consciously fine-tuning the optimization process. "Marcus, what are you doing now?" "Making sure everyone feels better when they visit," he said without opening his eyes. "The palace was scared before, all hard and pointy and ready to fight. Now it can help people instead of hurt them." Through her expanded consciousness, she felt the truth of his words. Her palace had been a fortress, designed to project power and control through intimidation. Marcus had accidentally converted it into something that projected healing and growth through harmony. Visitors would leave feeling better than when they arrived, physically and emotionally enhanced by exposure to his optimizations. "Your Majesty," Dr. Velix approached with scan results that made her voice tremble with excitement. "The child appears to be consciously directing molecular-level changes throughout the entire structure. He's not just processing toxins, he's functioning as a biological architect, redesigning matter to serve beneficial purposes." Queen Lyrelay stood from her transformed throne, feeling strength and clarity flowing through her enhanced body. The boy had given her more than personal improvement. He had shown her what leadership could become when supported by wisdom that transcended individual limitations. She could sense her subjects across 17 star systems, understand their needs, and respond with perfect precision. "Marcus, when your mother arrives, I want you to show her everything you've done here. Help her understand how your gifts work." The child opened his luminous eyes and smiled with innocent pride. "She already knows some of it. Mama says humans are good at fixing things, but we don't always know we're doing it. She studies why some places feel happy and some places feel sad when humans live there." The final piece of understanding clicked into place. Human terraforming success hadn't been due to superior technology or luck. It had been biological alchemy operating at unconscious levels. Human settlements improved environmental conditions simply through their presence, their metabolisms gradually converting hostile environments into supportive ones. As Marcus's mother's ship approached, Queen Lyrelay prepared for conversations that would reshape the fundamental understanding of life in the galaxy. The boy had proven that the future belonged not to those who could survive poison, but to those who could transform it into medicine. Not to species that could endure hostile environments, but to those who could convert hostility into hospitality. The age of warfare was ending. The age of gardening was about to begin, and humanities would teach the galaxy how to grow. Through the crystalline barrier, Ambassador Chen watched his son create patterns that sang with mathematical perfection, and Queen Lyrelay felt the future flowing toward them in golden spirals of infinite possibility. Tomorrow, when Marcus's mother arrived with her team of scientists, they would begin the real work, teaching a galaxy how to thrive instead of merely survive. The war had ended not with conquest or treaty, but with a child's innocent belief that everything could be made better. The poison meant to kill had become medicine meant to heal, and the universe would never be the same.